and welcome to another episode of Agency Leadership TV. I'm your host, Chip Griffin, and today we're going to try something new. I brought along a friend who's going to show off a solution that I think may be beneficial to some of you in agency land, and his name is Marcel Petitpas. He is the CEO of Parakeeto, as you can probably guess, perhaps, from looking at his very colorful shirt. Welcome to the show, Marcel.
Thanks for having me on, Chip. It's a pleasure to see you again.
It is always good to see you. You've been on my podcast. I think I've been on your podcast. So we're kind of getting used to doing these recordings now. But this one is different. This one is new, and it's something that I think will be beneficial to agency owners because we hear about all the tools that are out there, and we can sign up for demos and trials of them. But this is an opportunity for folks to get sort of a sneak peek at some of the capabilities of the tools that are out there. And so in this case, we're going to be talking about your platform, Parakeeto. So what is Parakeeto, Marcel?
Well, a Parakeeto is essentially a tool that helps agencies run more profitably. And the starting point for that thesis is essentially a product that helps us generate accurate estimates that are data-driven based on how much time and effort it took us to complete projects in the past, and helps us estimate projects much faster using that data, and of course, making them ideally more accurate at the same time. So that's the focus of the current platform.
And so to key off the book that you have over your shoulder there, why? Why did you do this, and why is the solution needed?
Right. So as you know, Chip, we've been at this software venture for a little over 2 years now. And so we started this company as a consulting company. We would do profitability optimization consulting for service businesses, primarily agencies in the creative and digital space. And what we found working through that was that it was incredibly hard for them to answer their most important questions without using spreadsheets. And so we ended up spending a lot of time helping them install the correct systems and processes and reports that they could use to answer questions like, how much money are we making on projects? How well utilized is our team? Who and when should we be hiring? How much cash flow can we expect to have in the future? What are our most profitable services? All those kinds of really important questions they're asking themselves every day that were hard to answer with data. And as we did that work, we started to develop the first version of our platform, which aimed to answer all of those questions by connecting to the data they had and pulling it in. And what we ended up discovering is that the data was not nearly as well structured as we thought it was going to be in most of these agencies. And so we were spending most of our time helping them clean up that data as opposed to just showing them useful insights. And as we started asking the question, why is this happening? Why is this data not well structured? Why is it not clean? It always led us back to that conversation, always led us back to estimation. And as we started asking agencies about estimation, and as we continued to do consulting, we continued to realize that this was really kind of the starting point for solving this set of problems, was helping them get a process that was not ad hoc, a process that was efficient, a process that was repeatable, and that was based on data, to structure that data in the right way, which then gave us a foundation on which to start doing, more in-depth analytics and being able to answer more important questions on top of that. So ultimately what we discovered was estimation is expensive for a lot of agencies. It takes a lot of man hours. Often the most senior people in the organization are stuck doing it because they're the only ones with the context or the gut feel to, sprinkle the magic fairy dust on the estimation that's required to get it just right. And that's mostly because they don't have an efficient way to say, here's the context that I'm using, right, about these past projects that we've done to come up with this estimation to come to this conclusion. And we're trying to develop a way for them to essentially empower their team with that same set of context and use that data to allow other people to do estimations rather than just the senior most people on the team, and to do it much faster.
Mm-hmm. And I think the story you described is one that is very similar to a lot of folks who've created successful software. I know I've created several software businesses in the past, and sort of getting in under the hood, either in your own business or someone else's, and seeing what's needed is often the way to give birth to a successful product. So I guess, with that, could I trouble you to give us a peek at the product and show us how it works?
Only because it's you, Chip. Let's, we'll dive in.
That's the whole purpose of this show. So if we didn't do that, it would be kind of a little bit awkward for viewers. But anyway, all right, let's go ahead and we'll bring up your screen here.
Yeah, so here we are looking at the login page for the product. So the version I'm going to show you here is one that integrates with Harvest. If you're not using Harvest and you're using something else to track your time, feel free to head to our website and request an integration. Let us know what you're using, and we'll let you know when we can work with your software. But in this case, we're going to use Harvest as an example. The idea here is that we want to connect to your Harvest account. And what we're going to do is pull in all the data that we have about your historical projects. So what were the tasks or services that time was logged against? How much time was logged, what were the projects, who did the work. And then in this example, we're going to imagine that a client's asked us to estimate a website project for them. So they want a new website, and we're sitting there thinking, okay, well, this looks similar to, these 5 websites that we've done in the past. And we can, search through our historical data and just find a set of projects that feel comparable. And we can select a minimum of 2, but we can select as many projects as we want as comparables. And the more projects we choose, the more accurate this estimation is going to be. And another interesting thing about this is we don't even have to select projects that have a similar scope or a similar budget. We really just want to think about, is it structurally the same? So do we have to go through a same set of processes or steps in order to deliver this work? And that's really the only consideration around what we consider a comparable project. So it really leaves it open to lots of past projects that you've done. They don't actually have to be that close or that similar. So once we've selected those projects, what the tool is going to do is it's going to give us 2 things here, a client budget or an hourly rate. And it's going to allow us to decide which one of these we want to fix. So I'm sure you've had clients that come in and say, we've got this much money and we can't spend any more than that. So you can lock that budget in, and based on that budget, our tool will tell you, here's the relationship between time and money for all the different tasks that you've tracked time against in the past across these different projects. And then as you make changes, it'll show you where your estimation falls in relation to the past projects that you've done for each task. And then, of course, we're adding all that up at the macro level at the top. And as you make changes here, you can either, again, lock the budget at the top, which means that the hourly rate will be affected as you move hours around. Or you can say, hey, we need to make $150,000 or $150 an hour for this to be profitable for us. So how much do we need to charge the client in order to give them what they're asking for and still be profitable? So you can go ahead and work that stuff around. If you've got some services from past projects that have changed. We see this all the time. Maybe project manager has been called 3 different things over the last 5 years in your project management tool. Then you can merge these together. So clean up that data set, make it a little bit more useful. You can see here we've merged these 2 different versions of design into each other. And if you've got an outlier that you're like, this Grand and Toy project was a bit of a dumpster fire, maybe we shouldn't be using that as a sample, you can just quickly hide it, and the line of best fit will automatically readjust to that change. So essentially what this helps that you do is get a guidepost as you do your estimation. And then, of course, when you're finished, there's kind of 3 possible paths. You can, save the estimate and duplicate it to create multiple versions. Oftentimes, that's part of the estimation process. You can share it with your team and give them a view-only version of this, which will allow them to go in, get an understanding of how you came to the conclusion that you did, by being able to hover and interact with these data points and provide you with feedback. And we're currently working on a way to push this information now back into the time tracking tool in the correct structure, so we can start to tell you how your estimates hold up in reality and start to help you essentially build your own algorithm for how you estimate and what biases you introduce to that process.
So this is, if I have Harvest or any other time tracking tool, I can typically go in and I can look at individual projects and get a flavor for how they work. So if I were putting together an estimate in the quote unquote old days, I might do that. I might go look at 5 different projects and say, okay, well, this is kind of what I feel. But what it seems to me what you've done is now been able to aggregate that data so that you can take a broader view that compiles it all together, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, when we reverse engineered the estimation process of, several agencies, like I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 dozen agencies now in the last couple of weeks, what we discovered was that most of them were doing just that, opening up 5 or 6 different tabs with old projects or trying to export all that information to a spreadsheet. And it was just very time consuming and difficult to get all of that in a singular workspace and then be able to easily make tweaks and really play with the data to make sure that it was as reflective of our set of assumptions as possible as it related to the estimate. So we've really tried to make that just much easier and faster so that all the context you need to feel confident and comfortable in your estimation is here in this workspace and very easy to, play around with and dial in to the final product.
Right, and obviously having a good estimate is the key to profitability. And I know you are the agency profit, so knowing how to do that effectively is really important. So one of the things that you showed here was this ability to sort of graph things. Are you able then to bring in the actuals later on? I mean, I guess you could always do it just by adding it as part of a new estimate, but how do you track the effectiveness of your estimates over time? Is there a way to do that with the tool?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently for our Harvest users, that would happen inside of Harvest. So we'll push it back into Harvest and it'll be structured properly and we'll have the budgets for each bucket. So project management will have a bucket of 60 hours and we'll be able to see that information in there. But the plan for how this tool grows over time, what you're seeing here is maybe 2.5 months old, so still very much in its infancy. So our estimate is kind of the starting point. Measure is going to be the next kind of set of features that we're looking to build out, which is everything to do with measuring the actual performance of these projects and having a place to look at that data and slice and dice it by project type or by role or by team and getting the insights that you need. And then the final step will be forecasting. So being able to use all this information about how you perform on projects, connect that to your sales pipeline and start to help you answer questions like what kind of cash flow can we expect to have? Who are we going to need to hire if these deals close? And really help you get ahead of a lot of the things that are challenging to get ahead of when you run a service business. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that you can give team members read-only views of this so that they have access to work on it. What's on the roadmap for collaboration between folks? Is it really more of that read-only type thing, or are there ways that people will be able to work together on producing some of these estimates?
Yeah, absolutely. We're very fascinated with the space of collaboration. It's something that we're currently having a lot of conversations with our users about and collecting feedback on. So, we have lots of ideas around that. But of course, we want to make sure that we're speaking to our customers. But, some of the things that are surfacing a lot right now are similar features to what you might expect inside of like a Google Docs or Google Sheets type of collaboration experience where, there might be some commenting, there might be some kind of an approval workflow if that's the way that your agency works, and being able to have multiple people, touching an estimate, leaving comments, making tweaks, having version histories. These are some of the things that we're hearing and we think are really interesting as it relates to collaboration. Certainly our goal is to have this be a thing that lots of people in the organization are touching and using. That's of course to their benefit and it's certainly to our benefit as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, the way you're going about it is smart, obviously, because you're getting something out there that people can start to experiment with, play with and use, and then give you feedback so that you can continue to improve it for what your users actually need, as opposed to what you've sat down with, a nice little wish list of ideas, because
right.
We all have them, right? I mean, anyone who has been a software entrepreneur has far more ideas than you could ever have the developers create. And so, trying to figure out which ones to plug in when is really important.
But that's the one thing I'd like to speak to for anyone that's watching that thinks this is interesting. You're probably sitting there with all kinds of questions and ideas, and we're a company that really believes in developing a product very close to our customers. And so, if it is early days for the product, but if it seems interesting to you, you can be a big influence in the way that this gets developed just by coming and providing some feedback. So we encourage you to reach out if you have ideas or if this seems interesting.
Mm-hmm. And what's the pricing model for this? Is it are you charging per agency, per user, per projects? How does that work?
Yeah. So, this is an interesting conversation in pricing. Like currently it's flat. We just said we need to charge something for this to make sure that the people that are coming on the platform believe that it's valuable enough to pay for. And so we just set the price point at $100 a month. However, we do intend to move to a value metric based pricing strategy, but we don't have enough information actually on what the value metric in the product is. Is it the number of estimates? Is it the number of seats? Is it the amount of historical data? And of course that we we are a very data-driven company. Everything we talk about in terms of how you should run your company is around, leveraging data, and we take that same approach to decisions like pricing. So that's just a really interesting problem that we're trying to solve right now, is what is the correct way to align our pricing with value. That's ultimately our goal. We want people who get more value out of the product to, be compensating us relative to that. And we want people who are getting less value out of the product to, have a relative cost that makes sense for them. So we just need to figure out what that's going to look like. But you can expect some other kind of pricing model in the future. However, those that are coming on as early adopters today are getting a lifetime discount locked in. So there's an incentive there to come and check it out early for sure.
Right. Yeah. You always want to thank your early adopters. I remember when I was running Custom Scoop, we had a few clients who had been with us from year 1 all the way up until year 15 when I sold it. And those folks always got a little bit of extra special treatment because they took a bet in the early stages. Obviously Harvest has a lot of adoption in the agency community. It's very heavily used for time tracking, but there are other tools out there. How difficult do you think it's going to be to sort of expand that to other platforms, or are you really, for the near term, focused mostly on Harvest because of its market share?
Yeah. I have it's funny. I'm not the CTO, so I'm going to caution, Ben, if you're watching this.
So what you're saying is you would like it to be absolutely everywhere, and your CTO is like, whoa, slow down.
Of course. I'm the CEO. And my sentiment on this is that, once we solve this for Harvest, we've largely solved it for most of the other time tracking tools. Of course, there are going to be little nuances in, what their APIs look like and the way that data gets structured and what information we can and can't pull. But most time tracking tools are very similar in the way that they function. And so our focus right now is making sure that we get this end-to-end experience of somebody coming to the platform for the first time and being able to successfully generate an accurate estimate that they're happy with way faster than they would have been able to otherwise. And of course, we're still working through making sure that is as seamless an experience as possible. And once we've really cracked that, then I think it's much more logical to go and increase the technical surface area of the product by adding more integrations on the front end. So that's kind of the way that we're approaching this now, is we're focused on Harvest for the time being, just so that we can move faster at tweaking and adjusting this whole experience to make sure that it's an amazing experience. And once we feel like we've really cracked that, then we'll start to add other integrations on. So, which is why, again, if you're not using Harvest and you want to be kept in the loop on when we might start to integrate with your tool, then drop us a line and just let us know what you're using, and we'll reach out to you at that time.
And if someone does want to try this out or be kept up to date or just ask you questions, where should they go?
If you head to parakeeto.com, you can, basically there's an integration request form at the very bottom of our homepage where it says not using Harvest.
Why don't we show that
for an integration?
Since we've got the ability here, let's.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess so.
Let's
if you head to parakeeto.com.
Designed for Marcel.
What's that?
We'll use the technology as it was designed, Marcel.
Yeah, imagine that. So you can download our agency profitability toolkit, which will get you on our list. And there's some useful stuff in there if you're actually just trying to improve your estimation right now. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you have the request and integration form here, which you can click on, and you just let us know your name, your email, and what time tracking tool you're using. And we'll add you to a list for that time tracking tool and let you know when we start to develop an integration for that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Are there other things that you want to share about the product before we have our time run out here?
I think the biggest thing is that, what we're finding right now is that, people are getting return on investment from the time savings right now in our early adopter testing. From the time savings alone, they're getting a significant return on investment. Of course, we haven't proved out empirically yet that this consistently improve the accuracy of your estimation. But certainly our experience on the consulting side is that taking a data-driven approach has a significant impact on improving accuracy. So I think those are the two things that I would want to say about this, is that, to your point, Chip, estimation is the foundation of a scalable and profitable agency. If we can't accurately predict what kind of time and effort it's going to take to get outcomes to our clients, it's really hard to kind of do anything else. And so we really believe strongly in this methodology. It's worked in our consulting, and ultimately that's what we want to see more people have access to, is just an easy way to do the best practices that are going to make them successful and sustainable as an agency, because we believe that agencies are in a large part holding up the backbone of our economy, which is all the small businesses that they serve and keep in business every day. So I guess that's my final spiel for everyone that's watching.
No, that's great. And regular viewers know that I am a big fan of data-informed decision-making. And I do say data-informed, not data-driven, because you've got to take the data and compile it with all of your other knowledge and expertise as well. But if you're not looking at the data, if you're not digging into it, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity to make better decisions. And so I haven't seen a product quite like this out there. So I'm glad you brought it to market. Hopefully folks will check it out. And I look forward to watching its continued development over the years.
I appreciate you having me on, Chip. This is a lot of fun. And if there's anything I can do to be helpful to anyone watching, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to hear from agency owners and offer any insights anywhere I can.
Great. Thanks, Marcel. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chip.